And I'm back again. Welcome back to the Mr. Atheist Guy show. And as you can probably tell, things are finally happening on my YouTube channel. I am updating things. I am getting, tags for videos fixed up, and I've got the colors on the side all the way I want them, and, just polishing everything up, trying to make it look nice and presentable. And today we're brought to you in Trippy Vision, which I've never ever been able to do this dance before, but all I have to do now is hold my arm straight and it'll do that little body pop thing that they get the little and they have it go through all their whole body, and it pops out their foot, and then it goes back up, and it, woo. Well, all I gotta do is this, and it's perfect. But anyways, the reason we are in Trippy Vision, this is to simulate water, because as you may have noticed, I decided to do a show about Noah's flood. Unfortunately for me, Noah's flood is a subject that has been covered time and time and time again on YouTube and many other video channels, so I guess I don't have any new arguments against Noah's flood, because every time I think I've come up with a new argument, some other person has already fucking come up with it. Like for years I thought this was brilliant. I came up with this back in like 7th grade, that if the whole earth was flooded, you got all this water raining down, flooding the oceans that are full of salt water. Well, what happens? The oceans start to flow into the lakes and inland, so that all the lakes and all the rivers and all the water in the whole world is mixed with salt water, thereby killing off any fucking fish that cannot handle salt water. And I had fish at one point, and they're difficult to take care of. Certain fish, you gotta have the right pH, you gotta have the right water temperature, you gotta have the right things, you gotta have the right, what do they call it, the total dissolved solids in the water. You gotta make sure all this stuff is perfect. And one of the things you gotta make sure is perfect is, if you got a bunch of saltwater fish, they gotta have salt water. And if you got a bunch of freshwater fish, they do not need salt water. I killed 3 fish within like a couple weeks because I was just completely unprepared and uneducated as to how difficult it is to keep certain fish alive. But I always thought it was brilliant, because after all the salt water runs into the lakes and it kills all the freshwater fish, then it keeps raining to the point where the salt water becomes diluted to the point where it's like fresh water, thereby killing off all the fucking saltwater fish. So the only fish that we should have alive today is fish that can go in salt water and fresh water. And we shouldn't have any other types of fish that can only handle one or the other. That's just an impossibility, that over the last couple thousand years, the diversity of fish that we have now have derived from the fish that would have survived the supposed fucking flood. But I thought that was brilliant. I came up with that years and years ago, and as I'm doing my research for like Noah's flood type stuff, I come across the Magic Sandwich, which is another internet show that is quickly becoming one of my favorite shows. And some guy on the fucking Magic Sandwich it came up with this salt water. It wasn't exactly the way that I came up with it, but he had come up with the saltwater freshwater fish dilemma already, and it's like, fuck, I thought that was so brilliant. So I don't really have anything to bring on that, but there are a few things over the years that I thought were very interesting, like having that much water in the atmosphere would make the air so saturated with water vapor that literally breathing in would drown you. So regardless of whether or not Noah and his family have a big fucking boat you know, if they breathe in water, they're fucking dead. And then another thing was talking about the atmospheric pressure would be so great with that much water, and it would crush them alive, and it'd crush their boat. And another, I don't even know if those are true, but they said, you know, I'd have to do some research to find out if those are true. I always thought those were interesting. Let's see, what else? The fact that the boat is made out of wood, and the largest ship ever made, which was made like fucking centuries after Noah, was smaller than Noah's fucking boat, and it sank shortly after it was fucking built. And the type of wood that Noah would have likely used just simply cannot support the weight of itself. That much wood piled up on top of each other, it would collapse under its own weight. This wood simply doesn't have the strength to maintain its shape under something that big with that much weight. It just can't. It's physically impossible. But let's see. And of course, there's the standard arguments like, where did the water come from and where did it go? Yeah. Where the fuck did all this extra water come from? You got a planet covered, it's like 78% water or some shit like that. And where does all the extra water come from? Did it, you know, and I've heard some pretty outlandish theories like, well, the water came from a comet that came in and smashed into the Earth, and that's what caused Noah's flood. And then they were talking about a comet that big that had that much ice on it would, you know, wipe out everything on the face of the planet, and without even having to worry about a flood. A flood would be, you know, something you'd worry about after, even if you could survive the initial explosion and impact. So that's bullshit. I'm looking over some of my notes here, so excuse me for a moment. Yeah, and another point. This is a point that was brought up on the Magic Sandwich that I think is absolutely fucking brilliant. Did Noah and or his family have every fucking disease specific to humans? Because if they didn't, how the fuck did those diseases survive? Are you gonna say that, you know, other people survived the great flood that wiped everyone out? And if that's true, not a very efficient God that, you know, if you're going to flood the whole fucking world, at least make sure you get all of them. I mean, fuck. And why even bother with water? I mean, we're talking about an almighty, omnipotent God here. Why even fuck with all the water? Why not just fucking, not even snap your fingers? Because that's too much, and God, I always thought of God as like this being made of complete and total energy. He wouldn't even fucking have fingers. So why wouldn't God just think all the people he didn't want away? Just go, well, see all those evil people that I should wipe out with this big fucking flood? I should just think about it, and they'll just all fucking disappear. Or, something even better, since he can go ahead and make people perfect in heaven, since he can take who you are after you die, and take away all the things that make you imperfect so that you can be perfect and never do anything bad in heaven, so heaven can be this awesome place where nothing bad ever happens. If he can do that, why didn't he just fucking change the fucking people and say, hey, instead of being fucking evil all the time, why don't you just be fucking good? And then all the people would have been fucking good. And then they're like, and then people are like, well, no, it's built in that we're evil. We're evil. It's built in. It's default. And it's like, well, whose fucking fault is that? Okay, if you're gonna say that God is the designer and that people are all fucked up, guess whose fault that is? If I go out and design something, let's say I'm gonna design a table, and it's all fucked up and it doesn't do anything right, it's not the fucking table's fault. The table is simply doing what it was made to fucking do. If God wanted us to be better, he would have just fucking made us that way. The fact that he made us the way that we are, and didn't bother to use his omniscience to figure out, hey, this is going to go wrong in the future, I better change something right now, means that he bears all the fucking responsibility. So God screws up and gives puts this fucking apple in a garden that he gives us access to, that he knows that we're gonna fucking eat, as he must know, as he's creating us and the apple, that our destinies are intertwined, that he knows he's gonna tell us not to eat that apple, but we're gonna eat the fucking apple anyways. If God was smart, if I was God, that's a great segment, if I was God, because I could do things a lot more way more efficiently than your fucking God could. If I was God, I wouldn't have even had this fucking piece of magical fruit that could fuck everything up. I just wouldn't have created it. But if I had to create it, I would make it like, the instead of the apple of knowledge, it could have been the pineapple of knowledge. Something that hurts when you try to get into it, or the coconut of knowledge. That would have been real fucking hard for them to get into without knowledge. So, God ultimately bears all the responsibility, and he fucks up time and time again. He's a blundering fool who can't get anything right, and then when he can't get anything right, he can't blame himself like a responsible fucking individual. He blames all the people around him that he created the way that he wanted them to be. So he's going to get pissed off at them for being exactly like they were designed. And we're going to invent this fucking hell thing what is the point in hell? I mean, if you know that you're going to damn someone to hell, or you're sitting around creating souls, and it's like, hey, I just created the soul, and man, this one's destined for hell, because I can see the fucking future about everything. If I don't take steps to change that, if I just, this one's destined for hell, and I still send it out into the world anyways, that's my fucking fault that it's going to hell. I don't see how the blame can be placed on anyone else but God, if you're going to claim he's the ultimate designer and he's the ultimate puppeteer that has strings on all of us. It's fucking ridiculous. There, I've jabbered on so long my cigarette went out. But where did all the water go? Where did it come from, first of all? You have to appeal to just magic. God magicked up some fucking water and it showed up. Where did it go after the fucking flood? I actually heard one fucking apologist say it flowed off the earth. Like a waterfall. Just, there's a whole bunch on there and it just flowed off. Just, there it goes, bye. Which, how fucking that water reached escape velocity is fucking beyond me. Let's see. Oh, and so some guy was like, and we've got proof for all this stuff. And I think the way that God, he didn't actually get rid of the water. He raised some parts of the earth and lowered other parts so that the water would flow off the parts that were being raised and flow into the parts that were being lowered. And it's like, oh, what a simple explanation. God simply just rearranged the entire surface of the earth. Okay, great. If you're going to go that far and say that God can rearrange the surface of the fucking earth, why don't you just say God magicked the fucking water away? I mean, come on, people. You're willing to put magic as an explanation, but you're only willing to go so far, because once you go past the certain point, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Well, how about it being ridiculous that you appealed to magic in the fucking first place? Let's get it back to the roots. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, another way to prove that Noah's flood happening, according to this one guy, is to just know that the Bible's fucking true. Well, hey, there's a fucking novel argument. If I assume the Bible's true, then everything in the Bible's true. Wow, I proved my case. And he kept talking about be sure to have the right glasses on, because you got to view all the evidence through a pair of special flood glasses. Yeah, you know what that's fucking called? Those glasses are called bias. That's called not being able to fucking look at the evidence objectively. It means you start with your conclusion and you try to fill in everything until you reach that point. It's fucking ridiculous. And of course, God had no choice but to flood everything. I've already addressed that one. If God's the ultimate guy in charge of all this shit, he is not limited, by definition, by any choice. Any choice. He cannot be limited if he's omnipotent. So he cannot be limited to any choice. And here I am. I'm out of time. I will see you next time.